since this law came into being. And the government has consistently declined to comply with the requirement to disburse these funds, even where the parliament actually appropriates the money. Okay? Okay? But more critically, it is never appropriated. I'm sure you know. Okay? As a result of sailing, so-called, and the money you can see, we share our budget. And now it's the majority. So what has been the reason why this money is not availed? Please help us understand. If the cure is only in entrenching it in the Constitution. Finally, on my part, is the ORPP. It's a very critical office. Very critical. And in fact, if you ask me, I wouldn't mind having it entrenched in the Constitution. But it must be reminded that its purpose is to protect political parties. Because our democracy is still very young. And most of our parties are vulnerable. So they need to be protected. And the office is at the center of the protection of these parties, and indeed of multi-party democracy. What do you make of the presence of the Political Parties Liaison Committee? Do you think its role so far has been satisfactory? Do you think there are things we can do to have it strengthened? Do you think its structure is proper? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I want to agree with you that we need to consider the entrenchment of that fund in the Constitution and the office. Kenya is a multi-party democracy, but as we speak, there's a serious threat to our multi-party democracy. One way of killing multi-party democracy is starving the political parties of funding. And what Honorable Piwanda is talking about has been there. There's been quite some deliberate attempt to not to disburse the funds and therefore not to finance political parties to be effective as vehicles through which Kenya as a country can realize its political aspirations. The second threat to democracy has been the issue of cannibalization of our political parties. There's a deliberate attempt to cannibalize political parties in our country. And the Jubilee Party has been the main target, as you are aware, ODM also, and other opposition parties. And we are not just talking of the opposition, but even in the ruling coalition itself, we know that there are parties like Mt.Kenya and ANC that are in danger or that are being arm-twisted to collapse into UDA. And we're in danger of actually Kenya going back to a single-party state. Now, what I want to find out is, I've looked at your presentation. I've not seen much on party hopping. And this is where we are finding members of parliament moving to another party without going back to their base or their constituencies for a fresh mandate. And this happened before. There have been proposals here on how that can be dealt with in terms of returning hygiene to our politics. And that political hygiene can come from very clear provisions that if you move from your party, you're elected on this party, on this manifesto. If you are to go to another party, then you should resign and go back to the people for fresh election. What do you say about that and the proposals in amendment of the Political Parties Act to ensure that happens? Thank you.
Thank you, Howard Kingping. I'll just pick up from where Honorable Eugene has ended on the rights of political parties vis-a-vis individual rights. You know, our constitution has been built among the most progressive constitutions, not just in Africa, but in the world. And part of what has made this constitution to be built as the most progressive was Article 4 of the Constitution of the Bill of Rights. I want to draw reference to Article 32 on the freedom of conscience, belief and opinion, where that says that every person has a right, either individually, in community, with others, in public or in private, to manifest any religion, belief, true worship, practice, all that. and a person shall not be compelled to act or engage in any act that is contrary to that person's belief or even religion. The same article, Article 4, on freedom of association, that every person has the right to freedom of association, which includes the right to form, join, or participate in activities of an association of any kind. That includes political parties. The same constitution, in Article 38, gives Kenyans individually political rights, that you have, every citizen is free to make political choices. That vis-a-vis the question of the rights of political parties, which to me are more of corporate rights. What, in your opinion, ORPP constitutionally has a higher ranking? Is it individual political rights for me as an individual, that I have the right to associate with whoever I want to associate? Or is it the question that has been spoken to as political sanity within political parties? Can I be forced to leave my party, UDA, today because, for instance, I have associated myself with a position that the leader of minority has taken in parliament, that as an individual I have made a choice, and probably could also be a matter of belief? Would you then say that my political party, UDA's rights, override my individual political rights and freedoms as enshrined under Article 4 of the Constitution? 2, you have spoken about a mix of the electoral system with what you're calling proportional representation and the first past the post. I'd really want to understand how exactly would that proportional representation cure the problem that we were trying to address with a group that was ahead of you called Gamawado, on the question of one man, one vote. Actually, just one man, one vote, even without going to shilling, since you are dealing with political offices, just to ensure that there is equitable representation, because I honestly believe that there should and there must be equitable representation, so that every member of parliament represents an equal, almost equal number of constituents, not the situation that we are in today, where you find a member of parliament who has been elected by 5,000 people and has the same voting rights, the same vote as another member, for instance, a member for Ruiru constituency who has been elected by 180,000 voters. And they have the same, the equality of the vote then is not there when it comes to representation. How then would this system that you're proposing of a mix cure that problem? You have something, Mheshimiwa?
Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Catherine Wambilianga, member of this committee. Though I've come in late, but I'll make a few observations having gone through your list. I am totally in agreement with your proposal of fast-tracking the constitution of the IEBC. But on the other side, you have not given the criteria categorically on how you want this proposed. You're only proposing that a member of your ORPP should be there. But what about the other criteria? And secondly, you have also given this proposal, you're backing our proposal on the 2/3 gender rule. Fine, you have said nothing about it. You have just said we do a multi-sectoral committee. Give us the proper details of what you mean by multi-sectoral. What is it, professional? What qualifications would you want to be included? Thank you.
And you don't have to give that all that now. You can still actually enrich your document after this.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So under 5 minutes, please respond.
Thank you. I will comment on a few and ask.
Sorry. There's one more issue from Honorable Kongo Mogeni.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Registrar, for your presentation. I just wanted to follow up from where Leader of Majority left, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, on this issue of political rights. And I think you are the right person to help us. You know how we construct our constitution. We promote its purpose, its values, its principles. Now, following from the question that has been posed by Honorable Ichung'wah, our political rights, fundamental rights, can be limited as provided for in the Constitution. One of that limitation is in Article 103. You can belong to a party, you can be elected as a member of parliament, but there is that article that is entitled the vacation of office of a member of parliament. So you can belong to a party, as Honorable Mheshimiwa Ichung'wah says, but there is a way you can lose your seat. One of them is in Article 103, sub-Article 1E, where you are deemed to have resigned from a party. And then Clause 3 says Parliament shall enact a legislation to provide circumstances under which a political party where a member will be deemed for purposes of Clause 1E to have resigned from the party. Now, you are the custodian of the enforcement of this article. I think either Section 14, if I remember well, of the political parties. Is it 14? Yes. Says if a member supports the ideology, interest, or policies of another political party, he will be deemed to have resigned from a political party. So the Constitution itself is saying if you belong to this club of a political party, you don't support its ideology, its policies, you are deemed to have resigned. So, Madam Registrar, we are here, this forum is discussing issues of discipline, political parties, party hopping. We are now multi-party democracy. You can exercise your rights under Article 38. If you are not happy with the political party A, it's not like in Kano days where we had one party. You can quit, go back to the people, you will get your political rights, your belief, your conscience, you win through another party. The person to help us is you. Have you tried to enforce Article 14, or have you found yourself in circumstances where you are supposed to enforce Section 14 as read with Article 103, so that you help us in maintaining discipline within political parties? 2, I support you. You need to be entrenched in the Constitution. Have you faced intimidation or pressure from either the current government or even the previous government in discharging your functions under Article 103 and Section 14? Then finally, you have mentioned the critical role that agents play, and we are doing this for posterity, not for UDA, not for Azimio. This is just for posterity. On the issue of political agents, I like your proposal. We should restrict them to either a political party or independent candidates. Do you think there would be wisdom if we proposed that agents be picked by political parties, but budgetary allocation to pay them be part of the mandate of IEBC, so that Parliament here can appropriate money for paying agents, the parties pick, but IEBC pays them? Do you think that is something you can support? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Proceed, please.
Thank you. I will really talk about a few issues, and then I'll leave as my assistant registrars also to talk on the others. Let me start with the one of the political parties fund, was by Honorable Wadai. It is true that we have never realized the 0.3% since the inception of the fund in 2007. But I want to note that the fund has been growing over time, and giving in my tenure in the Office of Registrar of Political Parties. When I joined the office, I made 370 million as the political parties fund for everything. Right now, we are close to 1.5 billion, meaning every year we have been growing the fund, and government has tried Treasury has been growing the fund, and government and appropriation in Parliament also. But we are not yet there, because our proposals are usually around 5 billion. Yeah, so it means we are not yet there. But we appreciate the fact that the fund has been growing over time. The reason why we are proposing the 0.3 to be entrenched into the Constitution is because there has been several attempts by different people, activists, wanting to remove even the 0.3. They say it's too much. But from where we sit, we think once it says entrenched in the Constitution, probably that many attempts, and it's not once, but it's severally, attempts for people going to court and wanting the 0.3 to be reconsidered so that it moves. That is the reason. But I think it's not the only reason why we can realize the 0.3. There's also commitment and also improvement of economy. We all know that sometimes we don't have adequate funds for everything. That's why we appreciate any time the fund is grown. So our proposal to the government of the day is to at least have a commitment every year. We are adding some money on top of what is there, so that progressively we capture it in our budget and we realize that in the perception of the fiscal year and the problems, probably financial problems, inadequate funds that we could be facing. The other issue I wanted to respond to is the talked about cannibalization of political parties. But I want to first of all, the cannibalization is not done by the registrar of political parties. It is actually the cannibalization happens within the political class, outside the office of registrar of political parties. So you have little to do when people are cannibalizing each other outside you, but when they actually are alive, as we apply the requirement of the law. And we cannot hold politics by the neck, because politics must happen out there, and we cannot really come and regulate individual behaviors and how people want to come together. However, we have an obligation as an institution to check what the party, and you can see we are saying we need commitment from political parties themselves and political class to follow their own constitution, their own policies, and the Political Parties Act. Because sometimes, even when so much has been done, you realize that what the parties are telling you to do as the register of political parties it is not even in their constitution, or it's not even in the Political Parties Act. They are taking you to a direction, and then you are attacked when you actually do not go that direction. But our commitment is to the law, your own party constitution, and also the requirement of the Political Parties Fund. So as far as politics is happening out there, I do not, indeed, most of the time, we let politics happen because we are not politicians ourselves. So when carbonization on number one day is happening out there, sometimes it's wrong to blame the regulator. Probably try to sort it from a political point of view outside there. I think that is our comment, which I know. And in regards to party hopping, I think the law is very clear. To us, once somebody has been elected on a particular party, there must be, if you want to move, then there must be the required regulations and laws on how you move from one political party to another, on how you move from one coalition to another. And that's what we have been enforcing. You tell us you want to move from one coalition to another, we tell you this is what you agreed at the coalition level. So if you don't fulfill the requirement of that coalition, then we tell you you have not moved. Then we require you to do what you are required to do. Then we allow you to move from one coalition to another, or from one party to another. The other issue I want to comment before I give Mr. Ariel Florence to finish up is the issue of the election system that we are proposing. What is it supposed to cure? Number one, we have seen during this presentation Kenyans coming and saying we want to even create more counties because we feel in the counties that we are in, we are underrepresented, or we are not able because our numbers are not enough. So what this is going to cure, when you make party list based on a region, and we can elaborate that further, it means those people who are not been able to be elected, they have no constituency, for example. So they will never actually fight their way to parliament, whichever way, because their numbers cannot constitute a constituency. Then it means using party list and you do regional list, you are able to capture those people who are outside the past the post positions. And then through the voting through party list, then you are bringing them to parliament. And that's why we are saying that is one method, how you can cure the problem of people who feel very underrepresented, the minorities in this country, who can never make a constituency to end up in parliament. That is one thing. It is also cure the issue of two-third gender rule. That is where you can put women, that's where you can put the youth, you can balance the vote, so that finally you finish. And then thirdly, it's going to strengthen political parties, because political parties will propose those lists, and then political parties will be voted for. So even if a political party is not among the first and the second, it still have a chance to have people coming from the list